In 2012, Ubisoft dropped one of the most legendary E3 reveals of the time, a hacker-driven open-world game with next-generation visuals, dynamic artificial intelligence, and the ability to control an entire city at your fingertips. It wasn't going to be another GTA clone. It was something fresh, something revolutionary. But when it finally released in 2014, it had its flaws. But despite the controversy, it emerged as a massive success, selling over 10 million copies and also introducing one of the most underrated protagonists in gaming, while also building a strong foundation for our franchise. But here's the thing. Instead of building on that success, Ubisoft did what they do best. They killed their own franchise. Watch Dogs didn't just fade into mediocrity, it went into a full downward spiral. So how did we go from one of the most hyped IPs to a series that nobody even talks about anymore? So let's break down the rise, controversy, and the ultimate downfall of Watch Dogs. Before we actually talk about how the series fell apart, let's set one thing straight. The original Watch Dogs was a good game. Sure, it was overshadowed by its infamous downgrade scandal, but at its core, it delivered a solid and unique experience. The hacking mechanics were unlike anything we'd ever seen in an open-world game. Chicago felt alive, with dynamic weather, a full day and night cycle, and a city built around surveillance and control. The gameplay, well, it was a perfect mix of stealth, gunplay, and hacking, allowing for creative ways to take down enemies. But what actually made it special was Aiden Pierce. This guy gets way too much undeserved hate from the fans. People call him bland or boring, but Aiden was one of the most well-written protagonists Ubisoft has ever created. He wasn't some over-the-top action hero, he was broken, calculated, and obsessed with control, always trying to make things right while using methods which may be considered unethical. His dark, grounded tone fit perfectly with the world of Watch Dogs, a world where surveillance, hacking, and corporate corruption dictated the people's lives. But despite all the backlash, the game was a massive financial success. It outsold Assassin's Creed at launch and was one of the best-selling new IPs of all time. Where Assassin's Creed Unity was struggling, this game was bringing more and more people to play it. And with all that success, the future of Watch Dogs looked bright. Right? Well, no. This is where Ubisoft completely lost the plot. After the massive success of Watch Dogs 1, Ubisoft's next move was a bit different. They scrapped everything that made the first game unique. Gone was the dark and mature tone. Instead, Ubisoft went full hipster mode. The gritty, rainy streets of Chicago were replaced with a colorful, meme-filled version of San Francisco. Aiden Pierce, a hardened vigilante, was replaced with Marcus Holloway, a hacker with parkour skills, flashy gadgets, and a hacker group called DedSec. The story? Well, it was a light-hearted adventure about sticking it to the man, packed with internet jokes and goofy missions. To be very honest, the game lacked a proper structure. You were given the freedom to approach any mission as you wanted. This thing made the game a bit messed up from me. The game relied too much on the follower system, which you can even farm yourself if you know the right way. In this way, you can speedrun the game and approach the final mission as soon as you get into open world. And speaking of missions, they weren't as memorable. Most of the game revolved around you going from one part of the city to another, hacking stuff and bringing stuff back to your HQ. Even the main story missions felt like side missions, with the exception of a few. It was a solid game on the gameplay side. The hacking was deeper, the gameplay was smoother, and the world was fun to explore. But the problem is that nobody wanted this. Fans of Watch Dogs 1 or the series overall wanted a darker and more intense sequel focused on Aiden Pierce, while expanding the themes of power, control, and surveillance. Instead, they completely shifted directions and alienated the original fanbase, completely abandoning them. And the results that they got were very disappointing. The game sold way less than its predecessor. Despite the game being critically praised, Ubisoft admitted that its sales were disappointing. And the reason was that it tried too hard to be trendy instead of staying true to what made Watch Dogs special. At this point, Ubisoft was already losing momentum, but they weren't done making mistakes. The mixed reception of Watch Dogs 2 led to a more disappointing game than usual. Ubisoft had one last shot to bring the franchise back, and what we got was Watch Dogs Legion, a game that promised a revolutionary mechanic in gaming history, which is play as anyone. And by anyone, I mean every single entity in the game. Any NPC, any person you meet, you can play as him or her. So instead of having a single protagonist with good writing, you could recruit any NPC in the game and play as them, with their unique characteristics, their unique personality, but zero depth. On paper, it's a brilliant idea, but in execution, they completely messed it up. And here's how Legion killed the entire franchise. Every game's focal point is its main character, and without a main character, the game had no real narrative drive. You had no strong motivation, no strong mission or objective. The play as anyone system made sure that nobody had any sort of depth or unique personality. The hacking system didn't evolve much, making the gameplay feel repetitive. Sure, there were new mechanics added, but they were given to you in the beginning of the game. You don't have that sense of accomplishment, the sense of progression, or any sort of dopamine releasing factor. And the cherry on top being that it launched with tons of bugs, lifeless artificial intelligence, and lack of innovation, although it promised something. By this point, people were absolutely done with Watch Dogs. Legion flopped hard, and Ubisoft quickly abandoned the series after that. We got a few DLCs, but that was it. Nothing else. So what happened? How did Watch Dogs go from being one of the most hyped franchises ever to a series that nobody even remembers? There are many reasons for it, but they abandoned what made Watch Dogs 1 feel special. Instead of evolving its dark and mature tone, they toned it down into a hacker sitcom. They focused on jokes over substance. The play as anyone mechanic sounded great, but it took away the feel of storytelling. In short, they misunderstood their audience. The series had a lot of potential to be the next rival of GTA, but they messed it up. And now the franchise is dead because of them. And Ubisoft never mentioned Watch Dogs in years. Could it ever make a comeback? Maybe, but only if Ubisoft goes back to its roots, with a serious and gritty hacker thriller that builds on the foundations of the first game. But what do you think? Was Watch Dogs doomed from the start, or does it deserve a second chance? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more gaming deep dives. These are Faxx Spitters, and we will see you in another video. Till then, goodbye.